Hey, what's going on, loungers? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Mason T, and I am a 20+ year importer and product developer. So specifically what I do on this channel is that I teach all different levels of e-commerce, not specifically reselling. A lot of people get me wrong. They think I'm teaching my way of reselling versus their way of reselling, and that is not what I'm trying to do at all. So in order to really have our shop class Sunday right now, we have to do a slight recap of a video that I did about 2 weeks ago depicting all of the levels of e-commerce that's out there. So this is the chart that I put together. I try to be very, very fair of what I'm trying to say. And when you think about exactly what flipping and reselling is, it is at its most basic level of e-commerce, because how do you even begin? You start from a couple of things at home. It doesn't get any more simplistic than that. So you sell those things and then you go get more stuff, whether it's from a Savers, a TJ Maxx, possibly some thrift stores or whatever, and then you sell those things as well, right? So from there, you know, we need to pivot to something a little bit more advanced so that more options open to us. When you look at the chart that I put together, there's a lot of red X's on the left. This is not intentional, right? This is just to show you what's actually happening when you think about all the different attributes in a business that is supposed to be available to you, but it's not because of the nature of the business. When you think about exactly what flipping and reselling is, it's a very simple and basic form of doing business. And that's why a lot of options are cut off to you in this. You don't have a replenishable product. You don't have creative control over it. You have no exclusivity over this item. And therefore that cuts off a lot of other options that you would have if you were to pivot your business to something else. Now, there's no shame in doing reselling. Everybody has to start off somewhere. Just because you are doing the lowest level of business doesn't make you the lowest life form on the planet. Let me make that very, very clear. I do not think less of people who are doing reselling. It's just that what reselling is kind of a sandbox. You're there to learn how to move the sand. Your goal is not to stay there forever. You want to move on to something else, because as you get better, as you progress in business, life should get easier. If you are more successful, if you are more established, you should have more free time. You should be making more money. It doesn't become just more and more busy work. And that's what happens when you try to scale flipping at volume. And that's what's being taught to people right now on YouTube by all of the gurus that I basically just straight up stand up against. Now, I'm going to teach you guys the right way of doing things. Now, today, we're specifically going to be talking about level 2. So based on this chart over here, okay, I want people to understand that it is leveled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by complexity. And because of the complexity, it changes the level, the barrier entry level, the difficulty to get into every single one. But make no mistake, if you choose level 2, that doesn't make you any less than level 5. If you choose level 3, it doesn't make you less than level 4. Each level is just a different level of complexity, but in every single level that you choose to do, that you choose to pivot over to, you could be more lucrative at that level than any of the upper echelons. So let me explain what's happening. Let's say you are a very successful candle maker in the home self-made goods, or you are a very successful, peanut candy, beef jerky maker and stuff like that. You could be doing hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, right? Or you could be in white labeling where you're only doing 2 or 3 items. So you're only doing, 5 or 6 figures right now. It's a lot less. So any one of these levels could beat out another level. You know what I mean? It's all about the barrier of entry to get into it first. But once you're up and rolling and established, every single level, one could be bigger than the other. It doesn't matter. But all of them, right, compared to what level 1 is way better off than what level 1 is, because you're so limited in the things that you could do. Okay, sorry for the long recap. So today we're just going to jump into specifically level 2 about home and self-made goods. And in order to do that, I want to show you guys a couple of categories that I recommend that is doing very well in this field, right? So let's jump over to Etsy, because generally all the home and self-made goods is a very Etsy-ish item. Now, the idea is not to say like, okay, we're going to completely abandon eBay and then go over to Etsy. Not at all. The idea is that if you go over to Etsy and you have a replenishable item, you no longer have to just be an eBay seller. You see what I'm saying? You could be both on Etsy and eBay at the same time. You have now leveled yourself up to a multi-platform seller rather than just wait on eBay passively. So the first group of items, right, that I want to talk about as far as a category is all that health and wellness stuff. Okay. When you talk about candles, right, bath bombs, soaps, shampoos, things like that. These are all the health and wellness things that actually sell very, very well. And what I love about Etsy is that they always tell you what is Etsy's picks, what is the best sellers, and what is popular now, so that immediately you don't really have to do that whole like, XTR comp, sold whatever. It's right here in front of you telling you what is the most popular, who the top competitors are, so that you could look into this particular category and then say to yourself, do I want to get into this, right? So in order to really choose every single category of what you want to do, you need some type of product research in order to do that. And we will get into more Shop Class Sundays where I talk about the framework and specifically how to do the research so that you could start understanding what the market is, starting to see the gaps in the market, starting to predict the market trends and stuff. But for now, it's just as simple as looking at all of these top sellers that are popular and what is Etsy's pick so that you know who the competitors, who the top dogs are, what are they currently selling right now, and are you able to become a contender? Okay, so yeah, health and wellness stuff over here. Basically, YouTube will give you all the how-tos you need in order to do anything. The caveat, in order to pay your dues to get into this space is all about developing some kind of skill, some kind of craft first, right? So that you could start producing your own items at home. So I recommend, into the health and wellness stuff, the bath bomb stuff, the soaps, the shampoos, because these things are very easy to make. And you would be surprised, right? That when you think about all of the competitors right now in this field, you would be worried about competition. But you know what? You were doing reselling before this, and there was no bigger, heavier competition than selling everyday items that anybody could get anywhere at a local Savers or a DD's discount or something like that, and then just putting them online and then waiting for a sale. As opposed to here, these are a lot of different kinds of consumable items that a lot of customers like to buy from one company and then jump around and try from another company, as long as you can make it attractive. So you have a reason to do very professional photos now. You have a reason to advertise beyond just waiting for a sale. Let's move on to like a couple of other things. Okay. So another great category is the whole baked goods, right? Homemade foods and stuff like that, whether it's cookies and jams and things like that. But there is a certain caveat into this, okay? Is that you have to check with your state's cottage food laws, okay? This is very important because every single state is different. Like in California, you have a lot of freedom into cottage food laws. As long you could make stuff from home and then you could sell them online. But in other states, it specifically says you can't make it from home and you need to at least rent a professional kitchen in order to sell them online. I know specifically Florida is even more picky, where they say that you could sell things online, but only Florida within the state of Florida. I guess it's like maintain a freshness kind of thing. But I wanted to show you guys right here this particular listing, right, which is a fresh Japanese Hokkaido bread. Right. And, some of you guys might be into this, might understand exactly what it is. Basically, it's a special recipe where you make a tangzong first, right, which is water and bread flour before you add it to your main mixture. But what happens is that you get this very stringy, milky, very delicious type of bread. But what I wanted you guys to see over here, right, is that it is 2 loaves for $44. It's $42 for 2 loaves of bread. And this guy is doing great. All right. This particular item, it has 186 feedbacks on it. Everybody is buying this stuff. Okay. Personally, for any of you guys who have a local Chinatown, you could pretty much buy one of these breads in your local Chinatown and they go for like $2 or $3. So if you're shipping this thing straight out of like, Los Angeles or something like that, these guys making a killing doing this. But yeah, the money is there, guys. All right. When I deep dive this particular person, like Sweet Sung by Jessica, oh wow, the foods that they put together. And then when you click on each one of them as you deep dive her listings and stuff, they all sell really, really good. This one, the mixed butter cookies, right? Everybody understands butter cookies, so they got a chocolate, the plain one, and then I think they have a green tea one. But look, this item also has 38 feedbacks of its own, right? And you got to understand that a lot of people buy stuff, but people hardly ever leave feedback. So 38 feedbacks actually means a lot. 100 feedback actually means a lot of sales. So as you scroll down here, you know, there's all sorts of other candy goodies and sweets and stuff and baked goods that they're also doing. So this one is a pretty good deal if you have, you know, something interesting going on. But again, you got to check with your cottage food laws before you jump into this. All right. Hey guys, if you're currently enjoying the content, remember to give it a big thumbs up. And if you'd like to contact me directly, you could go over to our main page, click on more over here, scroll down to view email address, and then you could go ahead and leave me a line, whether it's a video request or any kinds of questions, comments, concern. You guys could find me right here. All right. Back to the show. Now, the next one would be your classic things, right? So like knitting, crocheting, these are called fiber arts, right? Whether you're weaving baskets and stuff like that. I want to show you something over here. There was one particular listing that I found that looked kind of sort of like this, and it just says popular right now, right? Personally, I'm not a big fan of what I'm looking at right now, okay? But look, this is in 20 plus carts and it's being sold for $150. So there is good money to be made in this. And if you could knit something, you know, a better pattern than what this looks like, because, you know, my personal opinion is that this thing doesn't really look that good, but some of you might feel differently. But if you could come up with like patterns yourself that you think looks nice and people resonate with them, you could be making a very good living with this whole like knitting and crocheting thing, as well as the basket stuff. Again, refer back to like all these like what's popular now, what's being sold and stuff like that, so that you could start deciding, how do I put my spin on stuff, right? How do I put my flair, my twist on my products when I'm trying to do this? Okay, so the next one I'm going to recommend is slime, right? I actually did a video talking about slime. It was two women who did this, right? One was a stay-at-home mom, and then the other one was a 17-year-old girl, right? And one was just killing it, you know, more than the other one was. They're both doing very well on social media, but the little girl was doing something like 700 different kinds of designs, and she was doing something like, I forgot how much, something like $500,000 a year or something like that. But the point is, right, this is definitely another item that you can make from home as long as you have the imagination for it. You could create different kinds of textures. Look, there's the gel type of texture, there's the cloud type of texture, and then people even make their own honeycombs and things like that. And then you could get like all sorts of, you know, different ingredients from places like Temu and Shein, as well as, you know, all of this stuff is actually kind of like Elmer's glue based. I don't know everything about it, but again, you could always refer to YouTube for all of the different kinds of how-to videos in order to get started. And again, now you have an exclusive item that you have complete creative control over, you know what I mean, that you make at home, and then you could start selling. And at any time you need more, you just go ahead and you make more. So for some people who are not into, you know, the basket weaving and the crocheting and like all the health and wellness stuff, you know, you want to do something a little more manly, then I have woodworking for you guys, okay? As far as the woodworking, I would combo, right? Woodworking, leatherworking, and maybe some kydex things all together, right? Because all of these rugged things. But one thing that I thought was super cool was that this one was actually a bestseller. Because you might think to yourself, when it comes to woodworking, what about like these large furnitures? They're big and bulky. How do we do this and stuff? Right. Like when you look at this piece of furniture right here, they're not selling the furniture. They're selling the digital download. So if you go ahead and put the blueprints together on how to make something like this, and then this one as well, it's a super functional shelf, right? That can shift. So look, it shifts into a table, back into a shelf. This thing, $12.99 for the digital download, and it is a bestseller. So if you're good with carpentry and, you know, putting stuff like this together, right, you could create a digital download and you have an evergreen product that you never even really have to worry about. At best, you come back, tweak the listing every now and then, but this is a no overhead kind of product that you can sell over and over again. So really something to think about. Once you have a good item like this and a good listing, you can sell a digital download that you never have to worry about importing or tariffs or anything like that. Okay, So the leather stuff, right? This requires, some hands-on shop classes and stuff. This is a little more difficult. You have to invest in the materials and stuff like that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, a lot of people like handmade leather products, right? They look very nice. And you'd be surprised that some people who have a decent following and all they do is just make belts. And then on top of that, I think they got like a laser etching system so that, they could put some initials on it and stuff. They make more, they have more orders than they know what to do with. It's all about having that reason to create a following, and then spending the money on really good video advertisement. They don't have to be very long, 10 seconds, 50 seconds, as long as it gets that emotion inducing type of response, right? People go crazy about things like this. Okay. And then finally, like what I said about like Kydex, okay, the holsters and whatever, you'd be surprised, right? Once you get a decent following on holsters, I remember I personally bought an appendix rig when appendix rigs were starting to get really popular about 5 years ago. Man, I waited like 3 months for my order, right? And I left so many messages on Facebook. I thought he just swallowed my money and that was it. I ended up receiving my order and it was an excellent, excellent product, but I can't get any customer service out of the guy whatsoever. Not to say that they're a bad company, but the point is that they were so busy with their orders that they just weren't able to answer anyone at all. That's how crazy it got for them. And I thought this item was particularly kind of cool, right? Which is, in 20 plus carts right now. I don't know if it's made or a 3D printed or whatever, but basically it's a slip joint plier holster. Right? And, a lot of people care for it. And you'd be surprised how well this kind of stuff does. Now, the last category that I want to talk about is basically the 3D printing stuff, okay? Now, the 3D printing stuff, just like the woodworking things, is really, really cool. You know why? Because there is a whole bunch of digital downloads as well. So if you make a good design with, the different kinds of digital files, such as maybe some SolidWorks or 3D Max, or, I'm naming a couple of like older programs, but I think the newer stuff is like Creatively or it escapes me at the moment. But the point is that like you can have these digital downloads, right? And it is a free evergreen product that just keeps going on and on. And then you look at this one. This is a bestseller, and all it is a fidget spinner. But he's not actually selling the fidget spinner. He's selling the blueprints for the fidget spinner. Now, as far as 3D printing goes, there is so many possibilities that you could do in 3D printing. I want to show you this. I thought was super cool. So I pulled this up over here. Now, remember a couple years back, right? This is when Nespresso started to take, precedence. They started to get more popular over the Keurig stuff. Because while the Keurig did come out with some latte machines and stuff like that, they weren't as good as the Nespresso stuff. So the thing is that people wanted some kind of pod organizer for all of their flavors, right? And one guy came out with a pod organizer, and basically it kind of sort of looks like this thing that I want to show you. So let me blow it up real quick, right? So what's cool about this thing is that ultimately it's just a piece of plastic, and the Nespresso pods come in, this kind of packaging. So you could just open it up, put it like this, and then it dispenses, right? And it uses gravity. So as you take out a pod and then you use it, the next one comes out, and the next one comes out. So before this was a thing, before this Galvanox pod dispenser was even a thing, there was a guy who 3D printed a similar design to this thing. And then people went nuts about it, and because he put it on his social media, and people were like, how much for that? I'll give you, et cetera, et cetera. Like, how much do you want for it? And he had no inclination whatsoever to start a business. He was just like, I'm just going to go ahead and put that file for free as like, just open source. And you guys print your own, because I don't care to start a business out of it. So this website called Printables over here is that actual product. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up, and then you can see that this thing is pretty much this thing. This one is a more refined version, so it's nice and smooth. But this one you can see is just a 3D printed one, right? So you can print it in different colors that if you like. And then look, this is pretty much the exact same thing, isn't it? So you just put your Nespresso pods on top of this, and then that's all you do. So you can see like all the lines, like could be filed down, so it's a lot more smooth. But on top of this, when it comes to doing 3D printable things, whether you're doing replacement parts or you're doing stuff like this, what I think is really cool is that you can go to a website like Printables, right? And all of the downloads over here is actually free. And if you find some items that you think might be pretty good and stuff, you could go ahead and then download the file for free and then print out maybe, 5 or 10 copies of it and then make a listing and then see how well it sells. If it sells very well, you might even want to say, all right, I'm not 3D printing this thing anymore, but I am going to 3D print a couple of samples, send it off to overseas factories and have those things made. And now you are a private labeler. You know what I mean? Like, you could jump between all sorts of the levels in this. The point, again, right, is to expose you guys more to the options and the possibilities of businesses beyond what reselling is. All right, guys, so we're going to come back up top and wrap up today's shop class, because no matter how competitive this looks, right, it's not nearly as competitive as reseller items that can be found anywhere, right? So what you really need to do is start to decide which category that you want to jump into. It doesn't have to be the categories that I said. That was just a couple of things to throw out there. Ultimately, at the end of the day, right, whenever I do these shop classes, it is always to try to copy the principles, the ideas behind it, not specifically the examples that I put out, because it could be outdated. It could be, not for you necessarily, right? But the point is that all the principles behind it, all the options that will unlock because you have exclusive items, you have replenishable items, now they're available to you. And that's what's mostly important. So in order to really decide, right, which category is right for you, you really have to do your research on this. And I recommend that when you do your research, I have a whole framework for you guys to go with, which is the 4 lenses of scrutiny, right? Basically, you look through things through the lens of the seller, the buyer, the reviewer, and the scholar. And that basically gives you all the knowledge that you need to know of whether or not you should jump into this item. Now, as far as, what the whole framework does is that it helps you to see the market, to spot gaps, and predict the future trends. Now, when you want to finally create your own unique product, right, you want to put your own twist and spin on stuff. And for that, I think we will also do a class in the future, specifically going over all of the aspects of innovation, right? I have a 6-point class on innovation, specifically of all things to consider when you're trying to innovate a product. And we'll do more shop class Sundays for that specific topic. So in the meantime, I would say, okay, don't quit your day job, right? Because you still need to pay your bills and do whatever you're doing right now. But you definitely need to start carving out time to lay out the groundwork for your business in order to pivot, right? So start to dedicate yourself into learning a new craft that will allow you to create a replenishable product from home. So YouTube alone has all the knowledge that you need for the how-tos, right? Of what kind of products that you should pick up, as well as all of the skills that you need to perform in order to create your own stuff. And then eventually, as you get better at it, you can start putting your own spin, your own flair on things, right? Because ultimately, your goal is to develop a product that you can consistently sell. This is your opportunity to shift from listing random items and waiting for a single sale to nurturing a listing that moves multiple units every single day. Anyways, guys, that was the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like. And if you learned something, please consider subscribing. As always, I'll see you guys in the next. Take care.